Excuse me. Wow, that was bad. Hello, everyone, is what I meant to say. Welcome to the Commissioner's Couch podcast. My name is Ryan Moster. That is one of my best friends and co-host, David Cahoon. Once again, this is the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast. Come on in, take a seat, and let's talk some fantasy football. We're sponsored by Inside Edge Network and LVP Productions, and also MonsterMomentsPhotography.com. A husband and wife photography team based out of Cleveland, Ohio, that specializes in weddings. MOSSOR momentsphotography.com. There are no buys for the season. David will go ahead and go into injuries for the week.
All right. So week 17, there's a lot of injuries to get to. There was a lot that happened last week. A lot of people that went on IR, so we'll get through this as quickly as we can. So Josh Allen played through this injury last week, but has a foot injury. He's been limited all week. My assumption is he'll be a go and good to go for next week. But right now he is listed as questionable, but I'm assuming he'll play.
Yeah.
And then Jordan Love has a concussion. Malik Willis came in after that and then also hurt his shoulder. So both of them are listed as questionable right now for the Packers, which really sucks because their season seems to be falling apart here. And so I hope that they can kind of get it together because they're entertaining to watch. Both of them are listed as questionable. Lamar Jackson is listed as questionable with a back injury. It looks like he'll probably go, though, but listed as questionable. So we'll see how that goes. But if you've been watching us for any of the last handful of weeks,
I want to play Lamar Jackson.
Really advocating to start Lamar Jackson in any fantasy football playoff format at all. Yeah. And then J.J. McCarthy is out with a hand injury, already been ruled out.
Yeah.
And Gardner Minshew has been put on IR with a knee injury. He tore his ACL. So that's two quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks for the Kansas City Chiefs that tore their ACLs. So that's really awful. Yeah. I hate it for them. That's all the quarterbacks. Running backs, a couple of quick ones here. Josh Jacobs listed his knee with a knee injury. Listed as questionable with a knee injury. Listed his knee with a knee injury. There you go, David. Good job. Travion Henderson has a concussion, listed as questionable. We'll see what happens and see if he gets any practices this week. Alvin Kamara listed as questionable with a knee injury. Quinshon Judkins broke his ankle, his tib fib, out for the season, but thankfully will only be out for about 4 to 5 months. I've had that injury. It's not as bad as it looks, in all honesty. I would rather do that over an ACL any day of the week. Woody Marks has an ankle injury, listed as questionable. Kamani Vidal has a neck injury, listed as questionable. Jordan Mason has an ankle injury, listed as doubtful. Dylan Sampson listed as questionable with a hand and calf injury. My assumption is he will go this week. Javonte Williams has a neck injury and is listed as questionable. The wide receivers, Devontae Adams has a hamstring injury, listed as questionable. At this point, I wouldn't rush Devontae Adams getting back with that hamstring injury. If I'm the Rams, I would just let him wait until he's 100% healthy and have him ready to go for the playoff. So we'll see what happens there. Amon-Ra St. Brown has a knee injury listed as questionable. That one will be one to watch because it could go either way. Rashee Rice has a concussion listed as questionable. Ricky Pearsall has a knee injury listed as questionable. Rome Odunze has a foot injury listed as questionable. Luther Burden now has an ankle injury listed as questionable. Romeo Doubs has a wrist injury listed as questionable. Demario Douglas has a hamstring injury listed as questionable. Kayshon Boutte has a head injury listed as questionable. And last but not least, DK Metcalf has a 2-game suspension because he's an idiot and gotten some sort of altercation with a fan in the stands. And what are we doing? Grow up. Embarrassing, really.
Yeah.
It's on par for the Steelers. So, tight ends. George Kittle has an ankle injury listed as questionable. He'll probably be good to go. David Njoku still dealing with that knee injury listed as questionable. We'll see what happens. And Mason Taylor has a neck injury listed as questionable. So that is the injury report for this week, week 17, which will probably be a lot of fantasy football championship matchups.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, probably the majority of them is this week for sure. Some leagues have that double week championship, but usually it's this week. All right, well, we'll go into our hunks and skunks. These are players that we like, players that we don't like. David, you want to go over last week's that you had and see?
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my hunks that I had from last week, Phillip Rivers and Christian McCaffrey. Both of them have just been playing well. Phillip Rivers, even though he kind of fell apart at the end of the game last week for fantasy purposes wise, played really well. Had, I think it was 19 fantasy points. Christian McCaffrey had over 20. Both of them, played really well and were really helpful for you if you were in the playoffs and needed somebody to play, especially for Phillip Rivers. He's viable off the waiver wire and could have been a good pickup to add there. So, both of them did really well. I liked what CMC did a lot. He caught 2 passing touchdowns. He's just really dynamic. He's probably going to get that 1,000-yard rushing, 1,000-yard receiving title.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's been so efficient this year. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like he's got more receiving yards than 80% of receivers in the league. That's insane.
Yeah.
It's a cheat code. So
Yeah.
My last week hunks, not that great. I had Tyrone Tracy versus the Vikings. He had 16 rushes for 71 yards, 2 catches for 7 yards, 9.8 fantasy points. And then I had Nico Collins versus the Raiders, 4 catches on 9 targets for 59 yards, 9.9 fantasy points as well. So go and do your first hunk for this week, Dave. Week 17.
All right. My first hunk for this week is none other than Alec Pierce. He was somebody that I think 2 weeks ago I kind of brought up when Phillip Rivers came off the couch. I don't know if you were on that video, Moss. But he's somebody who I felt like could have really thrived well with Phillip Rivers, somebody who likes taking shots down the middle of the field, and Phillip Rivers is somebody that loves to take advantage of those types of plays. We saw that come to fruition last week. He caught 2 touchdown passes, had 85 yards, only on 4 catches. Just really efficient, really seemed to click well with Phillip Rivers, and put up a lot of fantasy points. I actually started him in one of my championship leagues last week, which is one of those 2-weekers.
Yeah.
And he really gave me a huge competitive edge in that matchup. So, somebody that I really excited to see him come in and play well and do the things that I've been talking about. But if you have him, I would consider starting him again. Still don't know if Phillip Rivers is going to start, but my guess is he probably will next week. Alec Pierce seems to be a big focal point of that offense in that passing game too. So.
Yeah, I used to think he was only good for best ball formats where he's pretty much like boom or bust because he's such a downfield threat, but his quarterbacks really never got on the ball with Richardson. Daniel Jones started to. He started to emerge this year. He's actually a really good pick. Sleeping, definitely a sleeper. He'll be an interesting free agent next year because I believe his contract ends. So we'll see where he gets signed to, or if he just continues to, play with the Colts with the new contract. So but definitely earning a new one for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. All right, my first hunk for week 17. I have Chase Brown versus the Cardinals. Projected 16.59 fantasy points. Chase Brown has had a confusing season, to say the least. There were a ton of expectations for him to take his game to the next level this season. But with the unfortunate injuries to the Bengals sustained and their embarrassing defense, Brown really hasn't had the opportunities to hit that next step yet. Many people wrote him off at the beginning of the season because of the struggles, myself included. I was really disappointed with his first couple of games. Don't get me wrong, he was the 10th ranked running back in PPR formats last year, and currently ranked as the 10th ranked running back this season as well. And if Joe Burrow would have stayed healthy, or if he would have traded, if they would have traded for someone like Joe Flacco earlier, he may have taken that step a lot quicker, and he may be a higher ranked running back. But the good thing is, as soon as the Bengals traded for Flacco week 6, Chase Brown became relevant again. Joe Burrow got injured week 2, and Flacco started for the Bengals week 7. Those few games really hurt his rankings. He ran the ball only 37 times for 82 yards, 16 catches for 76 yards. When Jake Browning was in there, only 36.8 fantasy points. Since the trade for Flacco and the eventual return of Joe Burrow, Chase Brown has been on a different level, though. He's ran the ball 110 times for 644 yards, 3 touchdowns, 42 catches, 277 yards, and 4 touchdowns, 178 fantasy points. His scoring with the good quarterback speaks for itself. 13 fantasy points, 25.5, 19.2, 18.7, 16, 18, 18, 16, 32.9. My dude has been on another level since he's had Flacco and Burrow. last week versus the Dolphins, 27th ranked rushing defense. He had a fantastic game. Rushed about 12 times for 66 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches, 43 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns for 32.9 fantasy points. This week, the Bengals played the Cardinals. Arizona has a 21st ranked rushing defense. They allow an average of 124.5 rushing yards per game and 15 total rushing touchdowns. There are plenty of opportunities for Chase Brown to have a very, very good game this week. He's been on fire, and I expect that to continue this week versus the Cardinals. That's why he is my first hunk for Week 17.
Yeah, I like that. He's been, just playing lights out lately, and it's encouraging to see, but sadly too little too late for the Bengals as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
My second hunk that I've got this week is none other than Chris Olave. What is going on with the Saints team? I'm honestly not too sure, but there is signs of life, and that offense seems to be coming to life. Chris Olave last week had 10 catches for 148 yards and 2 touchdowns, had 36.8 fantasy points for your team. So I hope that you had him. I hope that you started him because he definitely would have gotten you either advanced in the playoffs or to the championship. At this point, he looks like a league winner. He is the main focal point of that offense for the Saints and somebody that Tyler Shuck really relies on. At this point, I would consider him a must-start going into the championship weeks of your playoffs. He seems to be just completely on a different level, and they are going up against the Tennessee Titans, which have the worst pass defense in the NFL. So at this point, I think he's just a no-brainer start it for the final week of the fantasy football season. But yeah, he just proven time and time again that he is a reliable and viable starting wide receiver in this league. And it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is, but they do seem to find something here with Tyler Shuck down the stretch. So I think you start Chris Olave and don't even question it.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. I like Olave a lot. Going into my second hunk for Week 17 is Chris Olave versus the Titans. Yeah, projected 16.76 fantasy points. David hit on the head. What if I told you that this season actually has been Chris Olave's best season by far in terms of fantasy football value? That may shock a lot of you guys, but many were speculating that Olave's career may have been closer to ending due to concussions over the latter. But that's not been the case this season at all. The Saints have struggled overall this year. They're sitting at 5-10 on the season. But as David alluded to, the addition of Tyler Shuck has, in the draft has brought a resurgence to Chris Olave's career. This season, Olave has sustained the most targets in a year. He has the most catches this year out of any of the year, the second most yards this year. He has 3 more touchdowns than 3 more touchdowns. It's 8 than his previous record of 5 in 2023 season. And he already has 13 more fantasy points than his previous record, and he has a couple more games. Bottom line is all the concerns for Chris Olave have gone out the window now. He's a 6th overall wide receiver in fantasy this year. Last week, the Saints played the Jets. Olave had, like David said, 10 catches, 16 targets, 148, 2 touchdowns. He dominated against the 11th ranked passing defense with the Jets. This week, the Saints play the Titans, as David said. They're actually not the worst defense. They have the 25th ranked pass defense, not the worst, but that's okay. Allowing an average of 233 passing yards per game and 25 touchdowns this season. Chris Olave should be licking his chops for this matchup this week. David's right. He's going to pick up right where he left off, get the student in your lineup. He's going to dominate this week. Give me Chris Olave as my second week hunk for 17. Second hunk for Week 17 because he's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. It begs the question, though, and maybe this is something we can get into on our postseason podcast, but sure. What do you make of Tyler Shuck? Because I feel like the last few weeks he's actually looked really good and somewhat surprising, I think, because a lot of people kind of didn't believe in him, didn't think much of him, and he seems to be giving that whole franchise a lot of hope and a lot of belief. So what do you think of him?
No, I think for his first couple of games, he struggled for sure.
Yeah.
Turnovers have been an issue so far this season. What is he at? He's at 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's got to turn that around, but his yards are right up there. He's got 1,792 yards, and that's after not playing the first 7 games of the season. So, I think he's pretty good. He's a dual threat too, so you got to worry about his legs as well. So and that's basically where the league is turning to now, those quarterbacks that, have the rocket arm, but also need to be able to move on the ground. So, I mean, he's a prototype quarterback for 2020-25 football. They need to build around him and get better, but I think, they invested a decently high pick on him. What was it? It was a second-round pick, right?
I think it was the second, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for a second-round pick, he's performing pretty well. So.
Yeah, I would agree. But we'll get more into that in our postseason podcast.
Sure.
All right, my skunks that I've got this week. The first one that I have is somebody who was a hunk a couple of weeks ago, but has now since fallen off of his high mountaintop, and that would be Breece Hall. So the last few weeks, I'm not too sure what's going on with Breece Hall, but he just does not seem like himself. 3 weeks ago, had 4.3 fantasy points, 14 carries for 43 yards, with running back 46 on the week. 2 weeks ago, he had 5.7 points. He was the running back 46 on the week again. And this past week had 8.3 points and was the running back 38 on the week. He's still getting a lot of volume, 16 carries last week, 12 the week before, 14 the week before that. So still getting a lot of volume, but just is not really doing much with it. His yards per average are well below 4 yards a carry. Even below 3. At this point, I don't even know what's going on or what to make of him, because he just does not seem like the Breece Hall that's really working hard to get that contract extension, to get another contract with another team. I'm sure he will find another home in this offseason since he'll be a free agent, but right now he just does not seem very motivated to try right now. So at this point, I don't think you can start Breece Hall. I would stay away from him. They're going up against New England next week, which is a really good run defense. And then to close the season out, they're going up against Buffalo. So I would just stay away from him. I don't think he's worth starting, and he's not going to help your fantasy team out. So skunky Breece Hall.
All right. Breece Hall, David's first skunk for week 17. All right, my first skunk for week 17. Breece Hall versus the Patriots. David and I don't go over this stuff. This is just coincidence. This is just who we both think is, who are going to be good or not. So
Yeah.
I will actually answer some questions you had about Breece Hall here. All right. So let's go through this. The Jets hate Breece Hall. That's the first answer to any question. Okay. There's no other way to explain it other than the Jets hate Breece Hall. Last season, he was the running back 16. In 2023, he was the running back 2. And now this year, he's the 19th running back. So he was 2, 16, and 19 after this year. After looking at his numbers, I can clearly see where the discrepancy is. It's not his numbers of attempts. It's not his rushing yards. Actually, his average for the last couple of games have been that bad, David. But for the year, his yards per carry is 4.17, which is on par with last year and pretty close to the year before as well. So he's got the same yards per carry. The problem here it's not his rushing touchdowns, not his yards per carry. All those categories the last 3 years have been actually, incredibly comparable for Breece Hall, as I said. The major change of him being the running back 2 in the middle of the pack running back specifically correlates to the number of targets of receptions that he has. Targets and receptions, okay? Those are the stats that practically disintegrated over time. In 2023, when he was a running back 2, he had 76 catches on 95 targets for 591 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. Last year, he had 57 catches on 76 targets, nearly 20 less targets last year compared to 2 years ago, 483 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. And this season has been the worst of his career. He's had 34 catches on only 45 targets, 23 less catches than last season, and 42 less targets than in 2023. That is the clear issue with Breece Hall and his fantasy football production. This week, the Jets play the Patriots, and that's bad news for Breece Hall and those who own him in fantasy football. As David said, you should not start him. The Patriots have the 5th best rushing defense in the NFL. They only allow an average of 95.1 rushing yards per game and only 7 rushing touchdowns all season. I personally think Breece Hall has the talent to be a top 5 running back in the league if he is coached right and utilized correctly. But he's held back from reaching all of his full potential by a team that drafted him. It makes no sense. He's clearly their top player on the offense with Garrett Wilson. I almost said Myles Garrett. With Garrett Wilson being out on IR, and they're criminally unutilizing him. It makes even less sense that they decided not to trade him at the trade deadline and then still underutilize him. Like I said, it's clear that they just hate him. He'll get a new contract and he will be better for fantasy. There are brighter days, but they're just not right now. Unfortunately, the 19th ranked running back, Breece Hall, is a skunk until he can get off that Jets team. He is my first skunk for week 17.
Yep, I agree. And yeah, I didn't even think of the passing part of his game, but that definitely does explain a lot of it.
Yeah, 42 less targets than 2 years ago is insane. So
yeah, and I agree with you. I think the talent is there. I just think the Jets hate him. So
yeah,
it just sucks.
Stupid.
Speaking of hate, let's bring up my next skunk. That is DK Metcalf. See what I did?
He's not even playing though.
Oh, that's the point. Even when he was on the field last week, he only had 4 catches for 42 yards. Like, at this point, is the drama worth the squeeze? Like, I don't know if it is. He's been good. He's caught a lot of touchdowns, but he's also been a big distraction off the field, causing a little bit of drama. Now he's punching fans in the stands. Like, I don't know what to think of DK Metcalf. And to be honest with you, I'm glad that he's not playing because now people don't have to worry about, should I start him, should I not? Don't start him, and you're not even going to have to worry. He's been mediocre, to say the best, the last few weeks. Last week, wide receiver 48. The week before that, wide receiver 2. Week before that, wide receiver 55. And then right before that, the wide receiver 7. So very just boomer bust. He started off the year really well, but then has just kind of been on a down tear lately. And I think a big part of that is because Aaron Rodgers has found some other weapons in that offense, Kenneth Gainwell being a really big one of them. And they're really trying to utilize the run game a lot in that offense. And so I'm not a big believer in DK Metcalf, and I don't think anybody should be moving forward, even into the playoffs. If you do any sort of like playoff fantasy football stuff, I'm not a believer in DK Metcalf, and he just seems like a head case at this point, and I would stay away at all costs.
I think it comes with the territory in Pittsburgh, so
you're not wrong.
Head case receivers there, so it must be some mold in the locker room or something.
Something in the water.
Yeah. I don't know. All right. My second skunk for Week 17 is Javonte Williams versus the Commanders, projected 16.48 fantasy points. This is a guy who really stepped it up this year, to be honest. His rookie season was his best and gave a lot of fantasy owners hope. Looked really good his rookie season, but then he sustained his injury in 2022, where he tore his ACL, LCL, and then his posterolateral corner. I just looked it up. I actually don't know what that is, but as we all know, he destroyed his knee. And that, after he came back, he was practically a disappointment. In 2023, when he came back, he was the 29th ranked running back. Last season, during the final season in Denver, he was the 30th ranked running back. Javonte Williams signed with Dallas this year, and there was a lot of rumors that they were going to look into the draft to take their running back 1. Many were salivating at the idea of one of the top running backs in the draft going to Dallas, where they would inevitably feast, like Omarion Hampton or Ashton Jeanty or whoever. A lot of rumors that Dallas was going to get their guy in this draft. But to our surprise, Jerry Jones did not do that, and he stuck with Javonte Williams and company. And boy, has that decision paid off so far? Javonte has ran the ball 239 times for 1,147 yards, 10 touchdowns, 35 catches, 137 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. He has by far more rushes, yards, and touchdowns this season than any other season. He seemed to have revitalized his career for a team that desperately needed a running back 1. But Ryan, isn't this a skunk segment? Yeah, it is. Why are you gassing this dude up so much? The skunk segment is a weekly segment. He can have a dominant season and still be a skunk this week. So why is Javonte Williams a skunk? Well, he unfortunately has a lingering neck issue, as David alluded to earlier, that's been bothering him for a few weeks. Last week, he did play with the injury, but was very unsuccessful. Only ran the ball 9 times for 34 yards, 2 catches for 9 yards. Those 9 carries were the fewest that he's had since week 3. It's clear that his neck injury has had a lot to do with the lack of touches that he's encountered. This week, the Cowboys play the Commanders. It's actually a great matchup for the running backs for the Cowboys or Javonte Williams. The Commanders allow an average of 136.6 rushing yards per game. They rank 28th in the NFL in rushing defense. But unfortunately, reports are saying that Williams has been limited all week in practice due to his neck. That didn't stop him last week when he was also limited. He played, but looking at his usage, he can't be trusted as a starter this week, even with this great matchup. I personally would be sitting him until he proves that he can continue his normal workload pre-neck injury. That's why he's a skunk this week for me. You're muted, buddy.
I was muted. No, that's a good pick, and somebody I didn't even think about for being a skunk, but was pretty bad last week. And yeah, I don't know. He still had a great season, and still somebody I think will be fantasy relevant for next year moving into
absolutely
the season next year. But yeah, you're right. This week and this week and maybe the next week moving forward will probably not be that helpful for fantasy football matchups. So
yeah,
that's a good point. Which really sucks too, because he's probably a big reason why a lot of teams got to the playoffs and to the championships. But now you just gotta pivot at this point. So.
Right.
Yeah, once we get to sleepers and creepers, that'll be helpful for you when we get to running backs that you might be able to pick up. So
there you go. All right, let's move on to the next segment. This is our fantasy fireworks. This is David's favorite segment. What games can produce a ton of points? This is Week 17 outlook. I'll let you go first, Dave.
Yeah, so I think you beat me last week, if I remember correctly. But my game that I picked was the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. It was a good game. Really close. It went to overtime, but the final score was only 16-22. So not a ton of fireworks, but still a really good game. Some of the top players were Caleb Williams had 23 points, looked pretty good. DJ Moore had 23 points, looked really much more like the DJ Moore that we grown accustomed to seeing. And then Romeo Doubs was the wide receiver that was hot last week for the Packers, and so he's really been on a tear the last few weeks as well. But yeah, those were the top players. Doubs had 19 points. So overall, not too awful, but definitely not the fireworks fantasy points of which Mosser will give his game for, which was explosive. So
yeah, I actually forgot to just do a recap of last week, but I'll just go over it anyway. It was Rams versus Seahawks, and obviously the Rams dominated. Matthew Stafford had an incredible game. Puka Nacua had over 200 yards receiving, just absolutely dominant. Devontae Adams was out. Kyron Williams had a good game. Kenneth Walker had a fantastic game last week. Just overall, we had some top dominant players in each position. Just a really, really all-over fun game. So,
yeah. And the Seahawks won that in overtime as well.
Yeah,
so.
A lot of fun. And, both were 11-3 at the time too. So, All right, go over your fantasy firework for this week, bud.
All right, my matchup this week is probably going to be a hot take, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And that is the New York Giants playing the Las Vegas Raiders. David, this is supposed to be the fantasy fireworks matchup with two really good teams. You're right, it's supposed to be. These are two of the worst teams in the NFL. They are honestly trying to play for the top overall pick in the draft next year. But both of these teams' defenses are just atrocious, just awful, terrible garbage. Both of these offenses have some young pieces that look really promising and really good. So I think we could see a lot of flashes and a lot of explosive plays from some of these younger players like the Brock Bowers, Ashton Genties, the Tyrone Tracy's, the Jackson Darts. So I'm excited to see what happens for both of these offenses. This is really not a testament to just, hey, this is a bunch of really good teams that are playing, but more so like, hey, there's a lot of young talent here. Let's see what happens when they both go up against defenses that are really not playing for anything and are both really bad. There could be a lot of fantasy fireworks that happen with this one. There could also be a lot of just bad plays as well, some turnovers that happen because they're pretty sloppy. But I'm excited to see what happens. So, yeah, if you got some of those players, specifically I'm thinking the Raiders instead of the Giants. But if you got some of those players in this matchup, I would start them. Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Jackson Dart, I think is also a good one because the Raiders defense is so bad. But, yeah, that's my matchup this week, the Giants at Las Vegas Raiders.
All right. Not one
I don't think that was one he would have picked because he hated it and left. So that's a little awkward. All right. Well, I'm just going to keep talking until he comes back. Dude, you hated that pick so much. You left.
I said, man, the Giants and Raiders, get at it. No, I could see the vision. I could see where, I mean, Ashton Genty had a fantastic week last week. Bowers is world class still. Geno Smith is back. I'm not saying he's great, but he's better than Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell. So I could see the vision. Apparently, there's a back button on my mouse, and I clicked that on accident and it just kicked it right out. All right, so my week 17 fantasy firework game, I have the Rams versus the Falcons. Last week, of course, the Rams looked incredible. They have the second best total offense, second best passing offense, and eighth best rushing defense. Just overall, stellar team. Middle of the pack defense, but that's not bad. Matthew Stafford looks, He's a top 5 quarterback. Looks like he has just he's a 22-year-old dude out there just slinging the ball. Kyron Williams is top 10. Blake Corum's had some really good games as of recently. Puka Nacua is the top overall receiver. He's just been absolutely electric. Devontae Adams, who looks like he may play, David said. Still watch out for that, but he may play. This is a 7th overall receiver. And then their tight end, Colby Parkinson, is also scoring a bunch of touchdowns as of late against the Falcons, who really don't have anything to play for. They have a middle-of-the-pack offense, middle-of-the-pack defense. But Bijan Robinson they have, and Kyle Pitts they have. And those are guys I'm looking at really. Drake London as well, if he's healthy, which I think he is and will play. Bijan is a top 5 running back. Kyle Pitts is the 2nd overall tight end. This is exactly what Kyle Pitts owners have been waiting for so freaking long. So long, this dude. I mean, many dynasty leagues he was drafted 2nd overall. In our league, he was drafted over Ja'Marr Chase by David's brother. But
Poor Ryan, yeah.
I digress. Nonetheless, he finally is living up to his hype, and he's the Kyle Pitts that we all hoped and dreamed of. Kind of like the rookie season he had. So it's just going to be an overall fun game. Anytime you got Puka Nacua, putting up over 200 yards a game and dominating, it's going to be fun. So I'll look for that again. So.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I like that one a lot. The Rams look great right now, and Matthew Stafford should be the MVP for this season. He's just been that elite. So
yeah, he's been really, really good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know in the comments who you like more: my matchup of the Giants at the Raiders, or Monster's matchup of the Rams at the Falcons.
It's clearly mine.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, we're going to go into our next segment. This is called the long shot lineup. But these aren't the best players in each position. These aren't the worst players in each position. Not necessarily sleepers. They're just guys who we think might score the best or score a decent amount of points in each position. We'll go over a quarterback, a running back, 2 receivers, a tight end, and a flex. I'll go over my last week picks first. My quarterback, I had Jacoby Brissett. He went 16 of 31 for 203 yards and a touchdown and 1 interception. The only bad game of the year he had, and I picked it. It sucks. 11.62 fantasy points. It is what it is. My running back, I had Trey Van Henderson. We all know what happened there, unfortunately. 5 rushes, 3 yards, 1 catch, 9 yards. And then he had a really, really nasty head injury and is in concussion protocol. Excuse me. So that doesn't really count, but he had 2.2 fantasy points. My receiver, I had Ted McMillan, 6 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown, 19.3 fantasy points. Dude's on my Pookie list. I love this guy. Great week from Ted McMillan. I had Jamison Williams, 5 catches, 70 yards, 12 fantasy points. Not bad. I had Colby Parkinson, 2 catches, 21 yards, 4.1. That's a bust. And then my flex was Mike Evans, 5 catches, 31 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown saved it. 14.10 fantasy points. I'll take that.
Yeah. You are definitely better at this segment than me, so I will give you your flowers for that.
Thank you.
But I do feel like last week I did pretty well. So I had Caleb Williams for my quarterback, scored 23 fantasy points. And then I had the biggest reach of the week, Audric Estime.
I told you.
Hey, he had 6.6, which is better than what he normally does.
Guys, he said he's a must start, and I laughed at him. Sorry.
I did start him in one of my leagues.
Sorry.
It's okay. 6.6, not awful, but yeah, definitely. Maybe you should have just kept him as a sleeper. Then I had Jamison Williams as well, 12 points. Michael Wilson, 13 points. Kyle Pitts scored 18 points, who's been just absolutely on a tear. And Mike Evans, 14 points. So all in all, not awful, but not as great as you. So.
All right, go ahead and do your quarterback this week's long shot lineup. Once again, this segment, not the best players, not the worst players, not sleepers, just guys who we think will score a decent amount of points for this week at each position. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so for me, my quarterback that I have for the long shot lineup is Jared Goff for the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff has really been efficient his whole career. I don't know. I don't think he's been like an all-world leader this year, but he's just been somebody who has been steady and consistent and has had high floors throughout the entire season. He's somebody that can be relied upon to play in big primetime games, to show up and score a lot of points. And this week's not going to be an exception to that. He will definitely show up. They're playing the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas Day. Should be a good game, in all honesty. The Lions are fighting for their playoff lives right now, and the Vikings really have nothing to play for, and their quarterback of the future is still to be determined, and J.J. McCarthy's out anyway. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of fight the Minnesota Vikings bring. So because of that, I'm expecting Jared Goff to really perform well. He's got a lot of weapons around him, got both of those good running backs that are also good pass catchers. Got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a little beat up, but Jameson Williams has come on strong lately. So has Khalif Raymond, in all honesty. And so there's a lot of weapons around him. It's just, can Jared Goff perform well under pressure and help get this Lions team to the postseason where they could make a little bit of a run? So, yeah, we'll see what happens, but they play Christmas Day, 4:30. I would tune in and watch, but I think Jared Goff should have a big game. He loves playing in domes and loves playing in prime time, and this is perfect for him.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I like Goff. He's had a really good year this year. Bless you. I'm Ron Burgundy. All right. My quarterback. You're good. My quarterback for the long shot lineup, I have Dak Prescott versus the Commanders. Projected 22.9 fantasy points. Dak has had a really, really great season this year so far. The addition of George Pickens and Javonte Williams has helped out that offense tremendously. Dak is currently the QB5. It's honestly pretty strange because it's like every other season Dak is a top 5 quarterback or a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. 2019, he was QB2. 2020, QB32. 21, QB8. 22, 18. 23 he was QB3, 24 last year he was QB31, and this year he's QB5. So it's really, top of the line and then real middle of the pack or bottom of the middle. He's put up some really good numbers this year. The Cowboys play the Commanders. Washington has a really, really bad defense. They have the 28th ranked pass defense, allowing 136.6 passing yards per game and 14 total passing touchdowns this season. Dak should honestly have a really, really great game this week. In fact, the Cowboys played the Commanders week 7, and Dak had a great game then too. He went 21 of 30 for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns, had 25.26 fantasy points. Dak is playing out of his mind right now. He has 2 fantastic wide receivers, a great tight end, and a great running back. He's easily my long shot lineup quarterback for week 17.
Yeah, it's a great pick. I like it. He's just, been consistent all year.
Right.
So my first running back that I've got for this week is none other than Dylan Sampson, running back for the Cleveland Browns. As we talked about earlier, Quinshon Judkins has had a bad leg injury with his ankle. Already had surgery on it. Will be out for a while, which means the season is done. And so I'm convinced Dylan Sampson's going to come back from his injury this week and become the focal point of this Browns run game. He's a young player, only 22 years old, but has shown flashes of having big playability, especially in the passing game. And with a young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, I think that somebody like Dylan Sampson could be a great check down piece for him to get some good plays on and be an extension of that running game in the passing game. So Dylan Sampson, I think, could be a really good player in a lot of PPR leagues going into this week and could help a lot of teams win their fantasy championship. They really don't have anybody else in that running back room. Raheem Rocket Sanders is somebody who could play well. Travion Williams, I think, is the other guy who could maybe take some shares of the run game. But overall, I think they want to see what they have in Dylan Sampson to see if he can fit in to be the running back one, to be a workhorse in this league. And so we'll see what happens, but I'm excited to play him if I can in some of my leagues for Dylan Sampson.
Interesting pick. I will respect it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. My running back for the long shot lineup for week 17 is Jaylen Warren versus the Browns. Projected 13.19 fantasy points. Last week versus the Lions, had a great game, really good game. Ran the ball 14 times for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches for 8 yards, 32.10 fantasy points. He averaged 10.21 yards per carry against the Lions' 13th ranked rushing defense. This week, as I said, they play the Browns. Cleveland does have a great defense. Specifically, they have the best pass defense in the NFL, but the rushing defense has been okay, ranking 14th. There are a few factors that had me choosing Jaylen Warren here. First off, it would be a great story if Myles Garrett broke the single-season sack record against their bitter rivals in the Steelers, especially knowing that T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett's perceived career nemesis, owns the record with Michael Strahan at 22.5 sacks. Myles has 22 sacks. He needs half a sack to tie the record and just one more sack to own the record himself. The goal for Cleveland will be clear. They will be going all out on defense to get Myles that sack. They will. Secondly, it's important to remember that, as David talked about earlier, DK Metcalf is suspended 2 games for putting his hands on a fan last week. That means the Steelers will do the only practical thing. They're going to, do anything in their power to prevent Myles Garrett from getting the sack record against them. So, Jaylen Warren will be utilized a lot They're going to run the ball because you can't get sacked if you're running the ball. Against any other opponent, logic tells you I cannot talk today, guys. Sorry. I'm getting tired. Logic tells you that Warren would be a must start just for the fact that their wide receiver 1 is out and they don't really have any other weapons. But as I said, Miles will be chomping at the bit to get that record. The way that they try to prevent that from happening will be to run the ball. He had 14 carries, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns against the Lions last week. He'll be the only viable weapon for this week against the Steelers. That's why he's my long shot lineup QB. Right, running back. Oh my gosh, that was a struggle to get through, David.
Hey, you're good. It's a great pick though.
Guys, I have a newborn. I have not slept a lot. I have toddlers too, so I'm up late and then up early. So
yeah, you don't have to defend yourself. You're all good, man. But yeah, that's a great pick. The Browns' run defense as of late has really just been bad.
They've played some really good running backs recently too.
They have, and that's true. But yeah, they've just been. I don't know what's going on. More focus, I guess, on getting sacks than they are stopping the run, which I don't know if I blame them. So, all right. My first wide receiver that I have this week for the long shot lineup is Tet McMillan. Ryan, congratulations. You have finally convinced me to be a believer in Tet McMillan, and here I am believing in him. He's going up against the Seattle Seahawks, who just clinched their playoff berth. They have not really gone into claiming the number 1 seed in the NFC yet. They're still looking to do that. And so I think this game will be really competitive, and I think the Panthers might be trailing at the end of it and would be really good for Tet McMillan to get a lot of fantasy points as a team that will be trailing. They are also looking really good and looking to hold down their spot at the top of the NFC South, I think it is. And so, yeah, this could be a really good game. The Seahawks and the Panthers both have looked competitive and good. Bryce Young really loves throwing to Tet McMillan, and I think that, this could be a really good breakout game for Tet McMillan and somebody that could just thrive. And so I'm excited to see what happens. Mosser's finally convinced me to drink the Kool-Aid for him. But, yeah, Tet McMillan's a real deal. I'd start him.
Yes. Real quick, Tiger Stripes Media. Hi, guys. Are you guys on YouTube? Yeah, we're on the Inside Edge Network on YouTube. Go check us out. Inside Edge Network. Thanks for tuning in there, Tiger. Appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, thanks, Tiger.
Yep. And then we'll also be on our own later on the Commissioner's Couch podcast on YouTube as well. So please go subscribe there as well. This is the long shot lineup. My receiver for this week 17, Justin Jefferson versus the Lions. Projected 12.97 fantasy points. I know what you're thinking. How the heck is Justin Jefferson a long shot? Well, I mean, because you're all enamored with the name and not realistic with their production. Justin has been a top 6 wide receiver for 4 of his 6 seasons. 2023 he was the 33rd overall wide receiver due to injury, and this season he's the 26th wide receiver. After playing every game, it's clear the issue is not with Justin Jefferson though. He is still a world class, wide receiver and a top 10 talent in all of fantasy football. But, when he doesn't have a competent quarterback, the statistics speak for themselves, unfortunately. The problem this season has been the inefficient play of J.J. McCarthy. I've been saying it all season, but J.J. McCarthy freaking sucks. I don't care. Dude is hot garbage. I understand he's hurt. I'm not, rooting for injuries, but he sucks when he's hurt, not injured. So he's 126 of 220 for 1,450 yards, 11 touchdowns, and more interceptions, 12. Talk about a bust. Last week, J.J. McCarthy went 9 for 14, 108 yards in 1 interception, also hurt his hand. Justin Jefferson caught 6 passes for 85 yards. He had nearly all McCarthy's production in that game. Reports are that McCarthy is not playing now, so Max Brosmer is going to be at the helm for the Vikings. I have zero confidence in Max Brosmer. He's actually worse than J.J. McCarthy, which is hard to do, I would think, but the Vikings are playing the Lions, and they're a divisional rival to the Vikings, and the Lions still have they're in the hunt for the playoffs. So the Vikings, they've been eliminated for the playoffs. I'm sure that they would love nothing else but to ruin the chance of the Lions from making the playoffs. In order to do that, they're going to have to scheme Justin Jefferson to get the ball early and often. That's what I think they'll do. I think that, this game will be different than the most just because he's the only option out there. And, Max Brosmer, if they're going to have a chance, he's going to have to get the ball early. So he's my week 17 long shot lineup first receiver.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I don't know how much of a fan I am of him this year or this week even, but yeah, the talent's there for sure. We'll just see what happens with that quarterback. So, my second wide receiver that I've got this week for the long shot lineup is Alec Pierce, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. As I mentioned earlier, he is somebody that I thought could really do well with Phillip Rivers, and it sure looks like he did really well last week. Caught 4 passes for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. He just looks really good. He looks like a competent wide receiver. The target share is not there just yet, so I'm a little concerned about that. But moving forward against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, I think this Colts team wants to try and get tooth and nail and claw and fight their way to get into the playoffs. And I think that a big part of that's going to be Alec Pierce being a stud for them. And so I would continue to start him. I continue to ride the hot hand. Looks like somebody that Phillip Rivers relies on in this offense. And so I would continue to ride it and see what happens. But yeah, Alec Pierce is my wide receiver 2 for the long shot lineup this week.
There you go. Yeah, I like Pierce. My second receiver for the Week 17 long shot lineup, I'm going to do with Jalen Waddle versus the Buccaneers. 14.22 fantasy points he's projected. For the majority of the season, Jalen Waddle has been a top 10 receiver. Specifically, from Week 5 to Week 10, he's played out of his mind. But, as Tua started to struggle, so did Jalen Waddle. From Week 11 to Week 15, Jalen Waddle had 13 catches for 168 yards and 1 touchdown. That dropped his rankings from 10th to 16th. Last week, Tua was benched, and reports are saying that he'll never play another snap in Miami again. In his place, rookie Quinn Ewers got the start due to Ewers, naturally gravitating toward his wide receiver 1. Last week, Waddle was tied for the most targets of the season. He had 5 catches on 9 targets for 72 yards. The most yards that he had since Week 10, actually. This week the Dolphins play the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay has a 30th ranked passing defense, allowing 246.9 passing yards per game and 24 passing touchdowns. To put it lightly, the Buccaneers pass defense is really, really bad. They suck. That's great news for Quinn Ewers and his wide receiver 1 in Jalen Waddle. I expect him to have a lot of targets this week against a really bad pass defense. Give me Jalen Waddle as my second Week 17 long shot lineup receiver.
Yeah, I don't know if I love it, but I'm willing to see what happens.
I love it.
Waddle's got the talent. But we'll see what happens with that offense.
The Buccaneers' pass defense is really, really bad, and they've been crapping the bed lately. So
you're not wrong. All right, my tight end that I have this week for the long shot lineup is Theo Johnson, the New York Giants tight end. As I mentioned earlier, this matchup is one that could produce a lot of points and one that I'm kind of excited to watch. Theo Johnson has emerged as a viable starting tight end of this league. It's caught a lot of touchdown passes, and going up against a Las Vegas Raiders team that just really flat out sucks. And so I expect him to be a good red zone target for Jackson Dart moving forward, and somebody that will hopefully catch multiple touchdown passes this week. And so I'm excited to see what happens. May not be a household name just yet in the fantasy world, but Theo Johnson is definitely starting to make a name for himself. And so I would start him and see what happens. If you're in need, go pick him up off the waiver wire. But Theo Johnson, tight end for the Giants. You're muted.
Sorry. One cool thing about Theo Johnson is there's a guy named, I want to get his name right. Kent Lee Platt on Twitter. It's at MathBomb. He's the guy that comes up with the RAS ranking and scale for draft prospects when they go through the combine and stuff. And he has, he's pretty reputable in the draft community. A lot of people use his rankings for draft prospects, and he has Theo Johnson as the number 1 prospect in tight ends for like the last 20 years. So his metrics and his everything together is off the charts. It's just can he get it all together on the field now? So I personally think he's a sleeper. I've loved Theo Johnson for a while. I think he's the best is yet to come for him. So all right, going to my tight end for the long shot lineup, I have none other than Harold Fannin Jr. versus the Steelers, projected 11.98 fantasy points. Ladies and gentlemen, Harold Fannin Jr. is a stud and the top option on the Cleveland Browns offense. The rookie tight end is the 6th overall tight end this season and has been very reliable this year, specifically in the last 4 games. In his last 4 games, he's had 22 catches on 36 targets for 239 yards and 3 touchdowns, 69.2 fantasy points. Harold Fannin Jr. has the most receptions on the team. He has 70. Jerry Jeudy is second with 43. He has the most yards on the Browns with 701. Jerry Jeudy is second with 531. He has the most touchdowns on the Browns with 5. Jerry Jeudy has 2. And, he's the only reliable piece left on this Browns offense now that Quinshon Judkins is out with that awful knee injury. And, Dylan Sampson is hurt and questionable to play. David thinks he is. We'll see. The Browns literally have nobody really left to make plays for them outside of Harold Fannin Jr. This week, the Browns play the Steelers. Pittsburgh has the 27th ranked pass defense this season, allowing an average of 242.4 passing yards per game and 23 touchdowns. They suck. But wait. They suck even worse against the tight end. They're the 4th worst pass defense against the tight end the position this season, allowing 97 catches for 1,015 yards and 10 touchdowns, 159.70 fantasy points allowed to the tight end position in 2025. This matchup is so good for Shedeur Sanders and Harold Fannin Jr. Like I said, with the unfortunate injury to Quinshon, they will not be effective in the run game really at all. David thinks Sampson will be effective. I don't really think he will be. I actually love Raheem Sanders a lot more than Dylan Sampson, but we'll see. But nonetheless, Harold Fannin Jr. is easily my long shot lineup tight end for week 17. The matchup is great, and he's been electric. So
great pick. I cannot complain about that at all. So my flex for the last spot in the long shot lineup, would be Ashton Jeanty, running back for the Las Vegas Raiders. Somebody who just really exploded last week for a lot of points. It's somebody that I think can ride that hot hand against a Giants team that really is playing for nothing and has no heart. And so Ashton Jeanty, I think, is going to start emerging himself as a clear running back 1 in this league. Somebody that's going to continue to score a lot of fantasy points and get a lot of touchdowns. Him and Brock Bowers are pretty much the only pieces of this offense that are competitive in quality for the Raiders moving forward. And so I think they're going to continue to want to build upon that, continue to want to get them all the touches and looks that they can. And I think Ashton Jeanty is showing you that he can be somebody that can thrive in this league and play really well. So I would start Ashton Jeanty. I think he'll do really well for you. And if you need somebody to help you win your lineups and your championships, he just might be the one.
I like that pick. Shout out to 24TS Media. He said he just subscribed to the channel on YouTube. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Sweet. I think that's the Tiger Stripes Media guy.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Well, thanks, Tiger. Appreciate you, brother. Ashton Jeanty, good pick, man. I like him a lot. I might be talking about him later. I don't know. My flex for this week for the long shot lineup is Courtland Sutton versus the Chiefs, projected 12.95 fantasy points. This dude has been on a tear this year. Specifically, the last 5 games, he has 28 catches on 52 targets, 382 yards and 3 touchdowns, 85.7 fantasy points. He's been on fire. Last week, he led Denver in targets with 12. He had 6 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown, 20 fantasy points. This week, the Broncos play the Chiefs. Kansas City has the 13th ranked pass defense, allowing an average of 204 yards and 15 passing touchdowns. The Broncos did play the Chiefs in week 11. Courtland Sutton did okay then. 4 catches on 8 targets, 59 yards, had 10 fantasy points. Denver did win that game 22-19, but that was when the Chiefs had a top-ranked quarterback, at the time, in Patrick Mahomes, and something to play for. Now the Chiefs are 6-9, eliminated from the playoffs, and their star quarterback is out with a torn ACL. In his place, Gardner Minshew started a quarterback and went 3 of 8 for 15 yards and then injured his knee. Now it looks like the starting quarterback is either going to be Chris Oladokun or Shane Buechele. I don't know these dudes. There is also questions of Rashee Rice, who missed last week with concussion, will be able to play this week as well. The Chiefs are cooked, guys. All of that to say that logic tells me that the Broncos offense will be out there a ton, as the Chiefs offense will definitely have a lot of 3-and-outs. That's going to be, wear down the Chiefs defense, and it should give more time for the Broncos offensive players to get more touches. I expect Courtland Sutton to have the most targets on his team this week, just as he did last week. I'll take him as my week 17 long shot lineup flex.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Absolutely love it. And honestly, Bo Nix could do really well this week too. So, I love that insight there on that matchup.
Thanks, man.
All right, shall we get to our legacy lineup?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is the legacy lineup. This is a segment, basically DFS. This is not betting advice. These are just guys who we think that will be best at each position. We'll go over a quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. David, you want to go over your last week picks?
Yeah, for sure. So last week I did pretty well, if I can say so. So yeah, as Mosser said, we only pick one player for quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver, and one tight end. So last week, I think I kind of crushed it. So for my quarterback, I had Drake May, who ended up getting 24 points for fantasy football. He played against the Raiders, and honestly, they just, kicked butt and dominated. So looked really well, did really well. Wait, they did not play the Raiders last week. They played the Ravens. Sorry, my bad.
I thought you said Ravens.
I don't even know what I said. I'm getting all confused here. He threw for 380 yards and 2 touchdowns and had 1 interception. So played really well. It was a close game, but the Patriots did come back and win, so that was good. And then last week I also had James Cook, running back for the Bills, who played really well as well. I think he scored, if I have it up here real quick, 28.4 fantasy points against the Browns, so had 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just absolutely decimated the Browns defense. And then the best player of all of last week I had for the wide receivers was Puka Nacua. He was the top fantasy player last week. I think he scored 46 fantasy points, if I remember correctly, just absolutely dominated. And then I had Tyler Warren as my tight end, who was kind of the only dud of the group. So all in all, not bad. I really enjoyed. Yeah, I love this segment. I feel like I do a good job with it. I'll
give you your flowers because you're better at this segment than I am. So, but I don't do DFS. So
yeah, I don't either. But I like looking at matchups. So
shut up. Okay. All right. Last week, my legacy lineup, my quarterback was Justin Herbert. 23-29 for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 rushes for 42 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. 31.7 fantasy points, absolute smash. My running back was Devin Achane, 15 rushes for 81 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches for 9 yards, 19 fantasy points, pretty good there. My receiver was Amon-Ra St. Brown, absolutely got screwed on the final drive of the game, 4 catches, 54 yards, 9.4 fantasy points. And then my tight end was Trey McBride, 4 catches, 27 yards, 6.7 fantasy points. What the heck? Trey McBride is the tight end one, absolutely dominant. And the 1 week I pick him, he craps the bed. So, yeah. All right, going into my legacy lineup, quarterback, once again, we'll just go over quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. This is not betting advice. This is just guys we like. My quarterback is Drake May versus the Jets. David had them last week. I have them this week. Projected 21.23 fantasy points. There's not much to say here. Drake May is in contention for NFL MVP. There is no sophomore slump for the Patriots quarterback who went 23rd. Went from the 23rd overall quarterback in 2024 to now the 3rd quarterback overall this year. He is 321 of 453 for 3,947 yards. He'll have over 4,000 yards this game. 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And then he's dual threat, 95 rushes, 387 yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns, 311.48 fantasy points. Absolute stud. Last week versus the Ravens, Drake May, as David talked about, 31 of 44 for 380 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 25 fantasy points. This week they played the Jets. The Jets had the 20th ranked defense this season. Before the trade deadline, they were a top 10 defense. When they traded away Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, the defense naturally regressed tremendously. The sad part is last week, Steve Wilks, the Jets defensive coordinator, was fired as if somehow it was his fault that they traded away their best defenders. He was basically the scapegoat. Nonetheless, it's safe to say that the Jets defense is in shambles. I understand that Trayvon Henderson is going to be out due to concussion, but Ramondre Stevenson is a serviceable back when he gets to the start and doesn't have to split. So I don't expect a major regression in the run game for this week for the Patriots either. I expect Drake May and the Patriots to take advantage of that. He's my legacy lineup quarterback for Week 17.
Great pick. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to join you. My quarterback this week is Drake May.
There you go.
If it broke, don't fix it. As you said, they're going up against the New York Jets, which really, they just look gutless. They have no sense of heart, no sense of pride, no sense of wanting to be on the football field. And so I think Drake May is just going to take advantage of that and continue to play well. I expect players like Hunter Henry to have a big game. Ramondre Stevenson somehow played really well in the absence of Travion Henderson. And so, I expect Drake May to just dominate and continue to put on quite the show that he's putting on this whole season. And I think a win with them next week could lock them in for a playoff berth. And so, yeah, I just think there's a lot more for them to play for, a lot more for Drake May to play for than there is for the entire Jets organization. So, yeah, I would start him. The matchup is prime. It just looks like a perfect opportunity for Drake May to really give that cementing, here I am, NFL, believe in me, I'm here. So this could be that game for him.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, 24TS Media on YouTube. Quarterbacks Cam Ward, Titans, Tyler Show, running back Ashton Jeanty, RJ Harvey, Omar and Hampton, and linebacker Carson Swester for the Browns are all nominees for the Pepsi Zero Sugar NFL Rookie of the Week. That's awesome. Yeah, clearly I am biased. Carson Swester has been a huge addition to this Browns defense. 147 tackles on the year, leads the Browns by 45 tackles. Second is Devin Bush with 102. So absolute dominant. He's not only probably defensive rookie of the year, he might be an all-pro, which is insane. The thought of him and JOK possibly coming back together, I understand it might be far-fetched. With him coming back, with Andrew Berry saying that his injury status is nebulous, but nonetheless, I still salivate at dreaming that JOK and Carson Swester will once be on the field together at the same time. That would be incredible. Thanks for that info, 24TS Media. I appreciate that, bro. That's awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it. And honestly, out of all of those, I think I would pick Tyler Shuck to be the NFL Rookie of the Week. He played really well, threw for over 300 yards, didn't turn the ball over, got the win. I think he put on a show.
Give me Jeanty.
Honestly, that's a good pick, too. I can't complain.
I mean, 24 rushes, 128 yards, a touchdown, and then he still had a receiving touchdown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of good options there. But Carson Swester, as the only defensive nominee up there, is obviously one thing to look at because he's been absolutely dominant for this Browns team. That is maybe one of the only one or two lights left on this team. So
True.
All right, going on to the legacy lineup running back. Once again, thanks 24TS Media for that. That's awesome. We're going to talk about my running back, who is Ashton Jeanty versus the Giants.
Hey.
Projected 16.66 fantasy points. Listen, everyone and their mother dubbed this guy as the next generational talent at the position. I personally didn't think that, and I never did. David can attest to this. I thought that he could be good, but definitely not generational. Some call me crazy. David. But we'll see. In fact, I think that Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, who is next year's rookie class, is the generational running back of the next few years. Time will tell, but I digress. Back to Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty is a good back and will definitely, be having a better rookie season if the Raiders had a competent offensive line and quarterback. But that's just not his situation. Ashton Jeanty is a 13th ranked running back this season and has one last week he had one of the best games of the season against the Houston Texans defense, who are the best in the NFL this year. Jeanty ran the ball 24 times, 120 yards and a touchdown, one catch for 60 yards and another touchdown, 35.80 fantasy points against the best defense in the NFL, the Texans. This week, the Raiders, they play the Giants. The Giants, in fact, have a much worse defense than the Texans. The Texans have the third best rushing defense, and the Giants have the 31st ranked rushing defense. Geno Smith is back in for the Raiders at quarterback, although he sucks. He's, like I said earlier, he is a better option for the team over Aiden O'Connell or Kenny Pickett. Ashton Jeanty has a major opportunity to capitalize on his incredible performance from last week as one of their top options. I'll take him as my legacy lineup running back for Week 17.
Yeah, great pick. I'm a huge fan of Jeanty, so. My running back that I have this week is none other than Christian McCaffrey. Dude has just been absolutely on another level. Caught 2 touchdown passes last week against a really good defense, and is just looking to continue going off of that momentum. This week they're playing against the Chicago Bears. Both of these teams have a 10-4 record. Both of them are fighting for their playoff lives. It could be a really, really good matchup game for CMC. They're playing at home. Christian McCaffrey loves running against the teams at home and really has become a huge threat in that passing game. And so I think this is a no-brainer. If you can start Christian McCaffrey, go draft him in your DFS leagues. He's just somebody who's going to continue to be a bell cow back and get you that high floor, really high ceiling potential that you need to win these types of games. And so, Christian McCaffrey, he's projected to get 26 fantasy points this week, which is insane projection. So
he's a literal cheat code. You know who else is a cheat code? My wide receiver.
Who is that?
Puka Nacua versus the Falcons. I mean, I have to get at least one of the top guys in here. Projected 23.89 fantasy points. Not much to say here, honestly. Obviously, Puka Nacua is my legacy lineup receiver. 114 catches for 1,592 yards and 8 touchdowns, 333.3 fantasy points this season so far. He is the clear wide receiver one in the NFL and the wide receiver one now in fantasy football. He just overtook Jackson Smith-Njigba last week for that spot. This dude is an absolute cheat code. Just in his last 3 games, 28 catches on 38 targets, 573 yards and 4 touchdowns, 115.1 fantasy points in his last 3 games.
You said 500 yards in 3 games?
Almost 600, 573. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, the crazier thing is he missed 1.5 games due to injury this season and is still the top fantasy wide receiver this season so far.
Wow.
If you have Puka Nacua, you're probably winning the championship this year, let's be honest. Congratulations. My condolences if you're going against them. But nonetheless, Puka Nacua is my week 17 fantasy legacy lineup wide receiver.
Yeah, it's a great pick. I love it. There's really no brainer too. So my wide receiver this week, I was tempted to go with Puka Nacua, but I said, you know what, Monster's probably going to do that, so I'm going to go with somebody else. And that is none other than Chris Olave, the wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. As we talked about last week, he just really exploded onto the scene again, and honestly has been for the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, he scored 20 points, was a wide receiver 9 on the week. Last week, scored 36 points, was a wide receiver 2 on the week. And it's just been a target machine. 10 targets last week, 9 targets a week before that, 7 targets a week before that. And I expect that to continue against a really terrible secondary that the Tennessee Titans have. I expect Chris Olave to really just feast and Tyler Shuck to just really hone in on him and feed him the ball. He could really score multiple touchdowns like he did last week, and I can see the sky's the limit for him. I love this matchup for him personally. I think it's just like another shot at a team that passed on him in the draft and could be somebody that could do really well and just be the league winner for your team. So Chris Olave is somebody I'm just high on, and it looks like they found somebody in Tyler Shuck. And so, yeah, I'd start him. It should be a good matchup, and the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, best season of his career for sure.
Yeah.
And he's a Buckeye receiver. You can't go wrong. Let's be real.
Can't go wrong. Wide receiver you.
Yeah. All right. We'll get through these really quick. It's getting late here, guys. My legacy lineup tight end is Trey McBride versus the Bengals. Projected 19.87 fantasy points. Listen, I understand that I had Trey McBride as my legacy lineup tight end last week, and he struggled. The truth is, I said that the Falcons' defense was great against the tight end, and that it didn't matter. McBride would still produce, and I was wrong. He had 4 catches on 8 targets for 27 yards. By far, his worst performance of the season. He is still the tight end 1 even after last week, and I'm here to tell you that I think that he'll be the highest scorer of the position this week, despite his performance last week. Fortunately for him, the Cardinals play the Bengals, and the Bengals have the worst defense in the NFL. The worst. They allow an average of 403.8 yards per game and 53 touchdowns in the NFL, which is the most. But what is more important stat, that I dug up is that the Bengals are actually also the worst defense in the NFL against the tight end, and it's by far. They've allowed over 300 more yards than the second worst team, 5 more touchdowns than the second worst, and they've allowed 60 more fantasy points than the second worst team against the tight end specifically.
Wow.
Specifically, the Bengals have given them 105 catches for 1,363 yards and 15 touchdowns, 224.8 fantasy points against the tight end this season. That's really, really bad. So we have the top tight end in fantasy football and Trey McBride going against the worst defense against his position. This is a no-brainer. Don't overthink it. It's not like he's going against the Falcons, who actually were the best against his position, and I was just being dumb. This is actually a fantastic matchup. And for those reasons, I think Trey McBride is my legacy lineup tight end for Week 17.
Yeah. Should be a great pick and a great matchup. The Bengals really have nothing to play for either. So
yeah.
All right, my tight end that I have for the legacy lineup, we'll get through this one quickly, but that would be Harold Fannin Jr. For the Cleveland Browns. A lot of the same reasons I talked about earlier. Yep. He's just literally going to be the only piece of this offense that's worth starting moving down the stretch here. He is going to be a target machine. The last handful of weeks, even when David Njoku was in the games, he had 11 targets, 14 targets, and had 6 targets last week. he is just somebody that's going to continue to feast, continue to be the main focal point of this passing game, and honestly, going to continue to score touchdowns. 3 out of the last 4 weeks, he has scored a touchdown. And last week, he also had his first rushing touchdown as well. And so just somebody that's going to continue to find ways to get the ball in his hands and be a playmaker in space. I think this is a no-brainer. It's a great matchup, as Monster talked about, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Start him if you got him.
Yeah, I think he'll be top 5 production this week for sure. He's, I think, maybe top 2. He's really, really good. And I love the matchup. All right, going into our last segment, we're going to get out of here. We're going a little over time. This is called Sleepers and Creepers. These are basically players who aren't really on teams, not really anyone looking at them, but we think maybe could bring value to your team, whether you're in Dynasty and you throw them on your bench, or maybe David will find a guy who you think should start this week that is not on a team. I will see. And then Creepers, guys who we think that you should not be rostering right now. They suck. They have no fantasy value. Why the hell are you rostering these guys? Last week, my sleepers, I had Colby Parkinson versus Seahawks. He was owned at 8% of leagues last week. Now he's owned at 43% in leagues. He had 2 catches on 4 targets, 21 yards, 4.10 fantasy points. Had a bad week, but he still has 6 touchdowns in the last 7 weeks. Someone that you should look at for sure. And then I had Michael Carter versus the Falcons, the running back for the Cardinals. He was owned in 11% of leagues last week. Now he's owned in 51% of leagues. 11 rushes for 65 yards, only 6.5 fantasy points, but he is the starter there. So, a starter that's still only owned in 51% of leagues, that could be someone to grab.
Yeah, I'm going to skip through everybody that I picked up and avoided last week just because we're running low on time. But my top sleeper that I have for this week would be somebody I talked about earlier. That's Dylan Sampson. He's only rostered in 14% of leagues on Sleeper. So if you are in a championship matchup, please, I'm begging you, for the love of God, go pick him up. He is somebody who's going to not only get a lot more carries now that Quinshon Judkins is out, but he's also going to be somebody who's going to be viable in the pass game. He has really thrived there ever since Shedeur Sanders came into the game. His last time that he played on the field, he caught 5 passes for 64 yards, averaging 13 yards a catch. And 2 weeks before that, he also caught a touchdown pass. And he was the running back 11 on that week when he did. So the opportunity is there for him. If he's going to play and be healthy, I think that the sky is really the limit for him. They're going to want to see what they have with him and if they can build off of that, those sparks that they've seen this year. And I think that there will be a lot of potential for him in open space to get a lot of yards and possibly some touchdowns. So Dylan Sampson, go pick him up. I'm a believer.
All right, Dylan Sampson, David's first sleeper for Week 17. My first sleeper, Raheem Sanders, Browns running back, owning 0% of leagues. So I promise he's available. First off, I want all of our listeners to go watch the Raheem Sanders 2022 season tape when he played at Arkansas. Okay? So after the show, go look up 2022 season, Raheem Sanders when he played for Arkansas. 222 rushes for 1,443 yards and 10 touchdowns, 28 catches, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns in the SEC in one season. All I'm saying, is that there is potential for this guy to be successful now that there is a clear path. Quinshon Judkins is hurt, and we don't know the extent of his injury, for how long he'll be out. Looks like he's steered clear of the knee injury, which is awesome. Dylan Sampson, I believe, is not really a starting running back, and is just a good piece out of the offense, especially catching the ball in the backfield, but not every 3-down back, I would say. And then Jerome Ford, he sucks. All I'm saying is that, he is most likely the starting running back for the Browns this week over Dylan Sampson. We'll see. I don't know. And nobody has him. Last week he ran the ball 11 times for 42 yards, 1 catch for 4 yards. But that was only with a 30% snap percentage after he came in for Judkins. This week he should see a higher snap percentage. I don't know, man. I really like the prospect, and like I said, go watch his 2022 full at Arkansas. Maybe this dude can have some of that magic. He's my sleeper for this week. I guess time will tell. He's worth a stash for sure on dynasty leagues, I would say, just because if anything, he's at least an RB2 in a running back room that really doesn't have a solidified running back 1 anymore. But I foresee him actually getting a higher snap percentage over Dylan Sampson. So we'll see. I guess this will be the outlier week. So both guys are still very rosterable and should be on a team, I would say. But
yeah, I agree with that. It should be interesting because I think he could be the goal line back and could get those touchdowns for that are 2 yards away. Because Dylan Sampson's not very big, but he is a big back, so
we'll see what happens. I love him.
All right, my next sleeper that I've got, I only have 3 this week, so we'll get through this next one quick. But Taysom Hill for the New Orleans Saints, somebody that really has come back from his injury and has looked a little sneaky. He ran the ball last week for 12 times, 42 yards, so averaging 3.5 yards a carry, and had 15 points, fantasy points. So he's looked viable for the fantasy football options. If he can get some of that goal line work in the running game, he's somebody who's going to really help win your leagues this week in your championships. So Taysom Hill, go pick him up. He is available. He's only owned in 3% of leagues, so he's definitely available in yours. I would go pick him up. Consider starting him maybe against the Tennessee Titans. Could be a good matchup for you.
This is your Audric Esme of this week. Don't start Taysom Hill.
Might be.
Don't start Taysom Hill. I mean, if you have to, go ahead, but don't start Taysom Hill. I mean, he's not even the best tight end on his own team, so. But he's like I said, he's a Swiss Army knife. He's very versatile. I just don't think you should start him. My second sleeper, I only have 2 this week. Parker Washington for the Jaguars receiver, 33% rostered on sleeper. Parker Washington has certainly taken advantage of opportunities this season, especially as a total afterthought in his own wide receiver room. They have Brian Thomas Jr., who was a beast last year, but is in a certain sophomore slump. They have Jacoby Myers, who they traded for at the trade deadline, and they extended him for another 3 years, $60 million. And then they drafted Travis Hunter, in the top of the drafts, trading away picks, including a first and a second for him. All of the cards have been against this dude all year, but honestly, he may, be the best wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 in the entire NFL. 76 catches for 645 yards, 4 touchdowns this season. Last week, he had 6 catches on 10 targets for 145 yards and a touchdown, 28 fantasy points. His path is not as clear as others, but he has rostered in only 33% of leagues. He could be a decent trade target next year for wide receiver needy teams. He could be worth a stash in dynasty leagues for sure. He's worthy of a sleeper spot.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick and somebody who's been on the waiver wire a lot this year already, but has definitely shown those flashes.
Right.
My last sleeper that I've got this week would be Tyler Shuck. We talked about quarterback issues earlier and how people have just kind of been falling off the radar, and a lot of teams that have been doing really well because of quarterback play may not be starting those same quarterbacks anymore. And I think somebody like a Tyler Shuck could be a really, really intriguing player to pick up for your championship league. He's only rostered in 22% of leagues on Sleeper and is only started in 10% of leagues. I'm maybe not advocating to start him just yet, but definitely pick him up, especially if this is a 2-week fantasy football championship league for you. He could be somebody who could do really well because he goes up against the Tennessee Titans this week and then the Atlanta Falcons the last week. Somebody who's really emerged well, threw the ball 49 times last week and completed 32 of those passes. So looks really good and threw for over 300 yards with a touchdown and 0 picks. So he looks to be really like he's hitting his stride and looking really good. Could be somebody that could help you win a league. So I would go at him if you can. He's definitely available. It could be a really good matchup for you, especially this week against the Tennessee Titans defense.
There you go. All right, I'm going to skip last week's creepers. Like you said, we're going way over time here. This week's creepers for week 17, I have my first one is Audric Esme. Owned 39% of leagues. Was started in 16% of leagues last week. As I mentioned, alluded joke to whatever.
Winner right there.
David put his stamp on it and told you not only to pick him up but to start him, and I laughed and said not do that. Hopefully, you took my advice there. We each have a few of those all season, whatever. Last week versus the Jets, he ran the ball 5 times, 19 yards, 3 catches, 17 yards, only 6.6 fantasy points. Ended up splitting snaps with Evan Hall, who had 5 rushes for 3 yards. Nonetheless, it's clear that Audric Esme is not the answer to the Saints for their backfield. I guess he is worth a roster spot in deep leagues or dynasty leagues, but I'm definitely not starting him. LOL.
Yeah, my first creeper that I've got this week was somebody's sleeper last week, and that is Colby Parkinson, tight end for the LA Rams.
Sleeper's different than guaranteed start, buddy.
I don't disagree.
Try to put me on blast.
Colby Parkinson, somebody who really caught a lot of people by attention 2 weeks ago going up against the Detroit. Caught 5 passes on 7 targets for 15 yards and 2 touchdowns, so played really well and scored 24 points. And then followed it up this week with 2 passes for 21 yards. So not great, only 4 fantasy points. And it's somebody that I just probably wouldn't even consider starting anymore. It's worth maybe rostering just because the tight end position is so thin this year. But somebody that I just think is very matchup based and just could be very hit or miss. The LA Rams might be getting Devontae Adams back sometime soon. And if that's the case, Colby Parkinson, I think, becomes very obsolete as Adams is that red zone target threat. And so, it was a nice couple of weeks while it happened for him. But moving forward, I'm just not a believer in him anymore.
Yeah, Colby Parkinson has 6 touchdowns in the last 8 weeks, and I'm not gassing up here. I actually think he will not be the starting tight end next year. I think, ball knowers know this guy, but Terrence Ferguson is going to be the starting tight end there next year. So I would get on that real quick. But he is definitely going to be the starting tight end next year. So go check him out. All right, my creeper for this week, second one I have, is Kamani Vidal. Still owned in 66% of leagues on Sleeper. It was only a matter of time before he lost his snap percentage to Omarion Hampton. That happened, last week. That time has come. Last week, Vidal ran the ball 5 times for 11 yards, compared to Omarion Hampton, who had a 60% snap percentage, ran it 12 times for 44 yards, 6 catches on 26 yards. This week, the Chargers play the Texans. They're going to definitely have their best running back out there against the Houston's fantastic defense. Kamani Vidal is going to be benched. He's being inched out at this point. He should not be owned in 66% of leagues. If it's not dynasty, I'd drop this dude at this point. So, friend, you're muted.
Good pick. I like it. Sorry, I can't unmute myself. But my last creeper that I have for this week is somebody that I talked about last week as well, and that would be Xavier Worthy. No, this is no knock to Xavier Worthy. The talent's definitely there. The speed's definitely there. He's a big play person. But without Patrick Mahomes, he's really kind of just useless. This last week, he only caught 2 passes on 3 targets for 41 yards. So his yards per catch was good, but really just fantasy-wise, not really there. Only had 6 points. Without Patrick Mahomes, he's just nothing. And it really stinks because he is somebody that's been super talented, has done really well this year up until recently. Had some good plays and battling injuries. But, I think at this point he's rostered 82% of leagues on Sleeper and is starting 44% of leagues. If you're in your championship matchup right now and you're starting Xavier Worthy, just don't. Please, for the love of God, don't. He is not going to win you anything. He's not going to be somebody that's like, oh, maybe he'll make a big splash play. We don't even know who the quarterback is at this point. They've had so many injuries. You just can't trust this offense really anymore. And I would even consider maybe not even starting Rashee Rice because that quarterback position is so unknown. So Xavier Worthy, I wouldn't start him. I'd stay away and probably consider dropping him to pick up somebody else that we talked about earlier. And so, not a believer in him. Talent's there. I like the kid, but just right now, not it for fantasy.
Yeah, I think that 44% started is from last week when the expectations was that Rashee Rice was out, so he'd be the wide receiver 1. And Gardner Minshew, who was a serviceable quarterback at one point in the NFL, was starting, but now he's you can't play him. And I actually agree with Rashee Rice, but that sucks because I love Rashee Rice. So All right, that is it for this week, guys. 140 are live right now. That's really grateful. This isn't our normal day. Normally we do Wednesdays at 9. So the fact that you guys stuck with us on Tuesday, and we have that many people here is really, really awesome. We're truly grateful.
Tuesday before Christmas as well.
I know, so, truly grateful for all of you guys watching. Us this week and every week. Once again, we're sponsored by the Inside Edge Network and LVP Productions and MonsterMomentsPhotography.com. A husband and wife photography team based in Cleveland who specializes in weddings. Check them out, MonsterMomentsPhotography.com. That's MOSSOR, MomentsPhotography.com. Huge thank you to my co-host, David Cahoon. Follow him at David Cahoon24 on Twitter. My name is Ryan Mosser. Follow me on Twitter at DynastyCLE. This has been the Commissioner's Couch Podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Commish Couch. Have a wonderful Christmas. Please, everyone, stay safe and enjoy quality time with loved ones. Thank you all so much, and have a very wonderful Merry Christmas. And we will be back next Tuesday, not Wednesday, our normal time, but next Tuesday at 9:00. That is the David. the day before New Year's Eve. So we normally would be on Wednesday, but that falls on New Year's Eve, so we're not going to do that. So catch us live next Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Thank you once again, guys. Have a wonderful and safe Christmas.
Thanks.